My son mocked my old watch, but he didn't expect what was hidden inside. They say time reveals all truths, but my old watch held secrets that would shatter my son's arrogance in ways he never imagined. I slid into my chair at the family dinner table, my old wristwatch catching the light. The scratched face and worn leather band had been with me for 43 years. To me, it was beautiful. My son, Tyler, glanced at my wrist and burst out laughing. "Dad, seriously? You're still wearing that cheap junk from the Stone Age?" The sound of his laughter echoed through the dining room. My chest tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "It's been with me a long time," I said quietly. Tyler wiped tears from his eyes, still chuckling. "A long time? It looks like it survived the dinosaurs." He turned to his wife, Amanda. "Can you believe this?" Amanda smirked, covering her mouth to hide her grin. My wife, Patricia, touched my hand gently under the table, offering silent support. But she didn't defend me aloud. She never did anymore. Tyler leaned back in his chair, studying me with that superior look I'd grown to recognize. "Why do you even keep that thing?" The question hung in the air, sharp and cutting, demanding an answer I wasn't ready to give. Amanda finally spoke up, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It does look rather embarrassing in public, doesn't it? I mean, what would people think?" Patricia shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe he could wear something more modern. For family events, at least." My heart sank. Even my own wife was joining in, disguising her criticism as concern. Tyler seized the moment. "Exactly. Mom gets it. Dad, you can't walk around looking like you shop at garage sales. What will my business partners think when they meet you?" "Your business partners?" I asked quietly. "Yes, my business partners," he emphasized. "I'm building something here. Image matters. And that watch," he gestured dismissively. "It screams, I've given up." I looked down at the timepiece. The second hand continued its steady journey around the face, unconcerned with my son's opinions. "Real men wear Rolexes," Tyler declared, flashing his own wrist where an expensive gold watch gleamed. "This is what success looks like, Dad. Maybe it's time you learned that." Amanda nodded approvingly at her husband, her eyes sweeping over me with barely concealed disappointment. I said nothing. What could I say? Tyler signaled the waiter, ordering the most expensive wine on the menu without consulting anyone. He didn't even glance at the price. This was his show. Throughout dinner, he dominated every conversation, name-dropping executives and clients, treating me like I was invisible. When a waiter asked my opinion on the meal, Tyler answered before I could speak. "My father doesn't have refined taste," he said with a condescending laugh. "Simple food for simple people, right, Dad?" The guests at nearby tables glanced over. Some looked sympathetic. Others just looked away. I stayed quiet, cutting my steak into smaller and smaller pieces, my old watch ticking steadily on my wrist. Each tick felt like a reminder of who I'd been, of what I'd accomplished, of truths Tyler would never understand. Tyler launched into another story about closing a major deal, his voice growing louder with each glass of wine. He was performing, showing everyone how successful he'd become, how far he'd risen above his simple father. I stared at my watch, remembering. One day, I whispered to myself, too quiet for anyone to hear, "You'll understand." But understanding, I knew, often came too late. That night, alone in my study, I carefully opened the watch's back cover. My hands shook slightly. They always did when I performed this ritual. Inside, tucked into the intricate mechanism, lay a tiny folded piece of paper. I unfolded it with the gentleness reserved for sacred things. The handwriting was faded but still legible. My late first wife, Caroline, had written it 43 years ago, just weeks before the cancer took her. "Never forget your worth. This watch holds more than time. It holds everything we built together, everything you are. Don't let anyone diminish that. I love you always. See." My eyes burned with tears I refused to shed. Caroline had given me this watch during the most crucial moment of my career. She'd believed in me when no one else did. The watch wasn't just metal and gears. It was proof that I'd mattered, that I'd contributed something real to the world, that my life had meant something beyond Tyler's narrow definition of success. I carefully tucked the note back into its hiding place, my fingers trembling. "I won't forget," I whispered to her memory. "I promise." The watch ticked on, keeping time with my heartbeat. The next morning, my daughter, Melissa, found me in the study, polishing the watch with a soft cloth. Unlike Tyler, she'd always been perceptive, observant. "Dad?" she asked softly from the doorway. "Why do you treasure that watch so much?" I looked up, surprised by her gentle tone. "It's tied to my past career, sweetie." She moved closer, curiosity brightening her face. Melissa had never mocked the watch. She'd simply never understood it. "Your career as an engineer?" she pressed. "Yes. But Tyler said you were just a regular engineer. Nothing special." She said it without malice, just repeating what she'd been told. I smiled sadly. Tyler knows very little about what I actually did. Melissa sat down across from me, leaning forward. "Then tell me, what made this watch so important?" I hesitated. The truth was complicated, bound up in patents and innovations that had shaped entire industries. But how could I explain without sounding like I was bragging? "It was a gift," I said carefully, "from someone who believed I'd changed everything." "Changed what?" "The future." Her eyes widened. "Dad, what exactly is inside that watch?" Before I could answer, Tyler's voice boomed from the hallway. "Not the old man's fairy tales again," Tyler said, striding into the study. He'd clearly been eavesdropping. "Melissa, don't encourage him. He likes to romanticize his past because his present is so disappointing." I felt the familiar sting of his words but pushed through. "Actually, I was about to tell her about..." "About what?" "About how you were supposedly some genius engineer." Tyler laughed. "Dad worked at a company for 40 years and retired with a modest pension. That's it. There's no grand story, no secret achievement, just an old man clinging to an old watch." If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this story and also hit the subscribe button to get notified of our new series. Melissa looked between us, uncertain. I closed my eyes, remembering. 43 years ago, I'd been a young engineer, working 18-hour days on a project everyone said was impossible. My mentor, Dr. Harrison, had believed in my vision. When I finally succeeded, when my designs saved the company from bankruptcy and launched them into an entirely new market, Harrison had given me this watch. "For the man who sees the future," he'd said. "Tell me, Dad," Melissa urged quietly. But Tyler had already dismissed himself, throwing up his hands. "Waste your time if you want, Mel. I've got real work to do." 2 weeks later, our neighborhood held its annual barbecue. I wore my usual casual clothes and, of course, my watch. Tyler arrived late, making an entrance with Amanda on his arm. Within minutes, he'd gathered a crowd, bragging about his latest business venture. Then his eyes landed on my wrist. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced loudly, pointing at me, "I present to you my father's prized possession. This relic that's not worth $20. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Some people joined in the mockery. Others looked uncomfortable. Tyler walked over, grabbing my wrist and holding it up like a trophy. "Look at this thing. The leather's cracking, the face is scratched, and I'm pretty sure it loses 5 minutes a day. But does he replace it?" "Nope." My face burned with humiliation. I gently pulled my wrist free, but the damage was done. Neighbors whispered and chuckled. Amanda chimed in. "We've offered to buy him a new one, something respectable. But he refuses. Because he's stubborn," Tyler added. "Stuck in the past, like this watch." Then, from the edge of the crowd, an older gentleman spoke up. "I think I've seen a watch like that before." Everyone turned. The man, Mr. Peterson, was squinting at my wrist with sudden interest. Mr. Peterson moved closer, his eyes fixed on the watch. "May I?" he asked, gesturing. I extended my wrist. He studied it carefully, then looked up at me with respect in his eyes. "This looks like one of the Harrison Limited series. Those were given to elite engineers in the early 80s. They're incredibly rare. Tyler laughed nervously. It's just an old watch. No, Mr. Peterson said firmly. These weren't just watches. They were symbols. Only 12 were ever made, given to the engineers who revolutionized microcomponent design. Each one is a collector's item now. The crowd went silent. You're mistaken, Tyler insisted, though his voice wavered. Mr. Peterson shook his head. I'm a retired horologist. I know these pieces. If this is authentic. He looked at me. Sir, this could be worth a considerable amount. I shrugged gently. I don't care about the money, only the memories. What memories? Someone asked. But I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to explain. Not here, not like this, with Tyler watching like a hawk. Later, as people dispersed, I noticed Tyler hanging back, his expression calculating. He'd overheard everything Mr. Peterson said. I could practically see the gears turning in his head. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, I woke to the sound of my bedroom drawer sliding open. The clock read 2:47 a.m. I lay still, watching through half-closed eyes. Tyler stood at my dresser, rifling through my belongings. His phone flashlight illuminated his face. Focused, determined, guilty. He found the watch in its small box. His fingers closed around it. Go ahead, I said quietly, sitting up. Take it. Tyler jumped, spinning around. Dad, I was just stealing from me? I finished calmly. No, I was going to get it appraised. To see if that old guy was right. If it's valuable, you should know. I stood, walking toward him slowly. You want to know what it's worth? Well, yeah. Don't you? I held out my hand. Then take it. Get it appraised. But be careful what you wish for, Tyler. He stared at me, confused by my lack of resistance. You're just letting me? I'm letting you discover the truth, I said. Sometimes that's the only way people learn. Tyler clutched the watch, uncertainty flickering across his face. But greed won. It always did with him. Fine. I'll take it first thing tomorrow. You'll thank me when we find out it's worth something. He left my room quickly, the watch in his pocket. I smiled in the darkness. The next afternoon, Tyler walked into Murphy's pawn shop, the seediest place in town. He'd chosen it deliberately, somewhere that wouldn't ask too many questions. The pawnbroker, a weathered man named Frank, looked up from his newspaper. Help you? I need this appraised. Tyler placed the watch on the counter with exaggerated casualness. Frank picked it up, his expression bored. Then his entire demeanor changed. His eyes widened. His hands began to shake slightly. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice tight. It's my father's. I'm thinking of selling it for him. Frank set the watch down carefully, like it might explode. I can't buy this. What? Why not? Is it fake? No, Frank said slowly. It's very real. That's the problem. This isn't just a watch, it's part of history. Industrial history. Only 12 of these exist. They were given to the engineers who... He stopped, staring at Tyler. Your father was one of them? Tyler's face flushed. One of who? The Harrison 12. The engineers who revolutionized microelectronics in the 80s. Frank pushed the watch back across the counter. This belongs in a museum, son. Or with someone who understands what it represents. Not in a pawn shop. Tyler grabbed the watch, anger and confusion warring on his face. You're making this up. Look it up, Frank said. The Harrison legacy. Your father's probably in there. Tyler stormed out, his mind racing. Tyler burst through the front door, his face red with rage. You lied to me. I looked up from my book. About what? About the watch. About your career. About everything. He threw the watch onto the coffee table. Why didn't you tell me you were part of some famous engineering group? Patricia emerged from the kitchen, alarmed. What's going on? Dad's been hiding his past from us, Tyler spat. Apparently, he was some big-shot engineer. And this watch is worth a fortune. And he never said a word. I never said I wasn't. I replied calmly. Amanda appeared behind Tyler, her mother close behind. Tyler's mother-in-law, Diane, crossed her arms. See? I told you he was keeping secrets. Selfish and manipulative. Who knows what else he's hiding? I'm not hiding anything, I said. You never asked. Because you made yourself seem irrelevant, Tyler shouted. You acted like you were nobody, just a regular guy. I am a regular guy. No, you're not. You're... He stopped, breathing hard. What else aren't you telling us? Do you have money hidden away? Assets we don't know about. The accusation hung in the air, ugly and raw. I stood slowly, walked to the phone, and dialed a number I'd memorized decades ago. What are you doing? Patricia asked nervously. I held up one finger, waiting. Then a familiar voice answered. Hello, Harrison, I said. It's time we talked. Is this really... The voice on the other end crackled with excitement. I can't believe it. After all these years. Harrison Chen, no, I realized I couldn't use that name. Dr. Harrison Bennett. He'd taken over the company after my mentor retired, transforming it into a global powerhouse. I know it's been a long time, I said. Too long. I've tried reaching out, but you always declined. What changed? I glanced at Tyler, who stood frozen, listening. I think it's time I attended one of your events. The annual gala? It's in 2 weeks. You have to come. I'll send an official invitation immediately. There are people who'd give anything to meet you. I'll be there. This is incredible. I can't wait to... He paused. Does your family know about your contributions? I looked at Tyler's confused, angry face. They're learning. After we hung up, Tyler demanded, What was that about? Who is Harrison Bennett? An old colleague, I said simply. The Harrison Bennett? The CEO of Bennett Technologies. I nodded. Tyler's expression shifted through several emotions. Shock, calculation, and finally something like greed. You know him personally? Why didn't you ever say anything? You never asked, I repeated. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a gala to prepare for. I picked up my watch from the coffee table and walked away, leaving my son speechless. The invitation arrived 3 days later, embossed, formal, exclusive. Tyler and Amanda hovered over it like vultures over carrion. The Bennett Technologies Annual Innovation Gala, Amanda read aloud. This is one of the most prestigious events in the industry. People pay thousands just to attend. Tyler grabbed the invitation. We're going with you. It wasn't a question. I looked at him steadily. Are you sure? It might be boring for you. Just a bunch of old engineers talking about the past. We're going, he insisted. I want to meet these people. Network. Maybe leverage your connections for my business. Of course, Tyler never did anything without a self-serving angle. Patricia looked uncertain. Maybe we should let your father go alone. It's his moment. No, Diane interjected. Tyler should be there. Family supports family, right? Her tone dripped with sarcasm, as if I were the one who'd failed in that department. Amanda nodded eagerly. We'll need new outfits. Something impressive. I watched them plan, their excitement building. They saw opportunity. They saw connections. They saw everything except what really mattered. Fine, I said quietly. You can come. Tyler grinned triumphantly. Great. I'll make sure to introduce myself properly. Show these people what the next generation can do. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. Time, as always, would tell the truth. The night of the gala, I dressed in my old suit. The same one I'd worn to important meetings decades ago. It still fit, though the style was outdated. I didn't care, and I wore the watch. Tyler and Amanda arrived at my house dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly retirement check. Tyler's new Rolex gleamed ostentatiously. When he saw my outfit, he groaned. Dad, seriously? That suit? And the watch? This suit has served me well. It's from the 90s. Exactly. The same era as my work. It's fitting. Amanda whispered something to Tyler. He rolled his eyes but didn't argue further. They probably figured they could distance themselves from me once inside. We arrived at the Grand Regency Hotel, where the gala was being held. Valets rushed to open doors. Red carpets stretched to the entrance. Photographers waited for notable arrivals. As we walked in, Tyler whispered mockingly, "Here comes the embarrassment." I ignored him, scanning the crowd. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, perfectly dressed tables, hundreds of industry leaders and innovators. Then the whispers started. People turned, staring not at Tyler's expensive clothes, but at me, at my old suit, at my watch. Heads began turning toward us, and Tyler's smirk faded. "What's happening?" he muttered. Someone was approaching fast. Dr. Harrison Bennett himself pushed through the crowd, his face alight with joy. He was older now, silver-haired, but his eyes held the same sharp intelligence I remembered. "There he is." Harrison's voice boomed across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I present one of the true pioneers of our industry?" People stopped talking. The room focused on us. Harrison reached me, grabbing my hand in both of his. I never thought I'd see this again. His eyes were fixed on my watch. This watch changed everything. A crowd gathered around us. Industry leaders, journalists, young engineers, all pressing closer. "This watch?" someone asked. Harrison nodded reverently. "Not many people know the full story. This timepiece was given to 12 engineers who revolutionized microelectronics in the early 80s. But it wasn't just ceremonial." He looked at me. "May I?" I extended my wrist. Harrison carefully indicated the watch's unique design, the unusual thickness, the specific markings on the case. The watch casings, Harrison explained, secretly held micro-prototypes, tiny components that demonstrated new manufacturing techniques. These weren't just watches, they were proof of concept, portable evidence of innovation that launched entire industries. The crowd murmured with fascination. Tyler stood frozen beside me, his face draining of color. "This man," Harrison continued, "was the youngest of the 12, and arguably the most brilliant." The crowd erupted in applause. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this story and also hit the subscribe button to get notified of our new series. Harrison raised his voice over the applause. "Let me tell you what this man accomplished. In 1981, our company was failing. We'd invested everything in miniaturization technology that wasn't working. We were months from bankruptcy." The crowd leaned in, silent. This man, then just 28 years old, proposed a revolutionary approach. Everyone told him it was impossible, too expensive, too risky. But he persisted. Harrison's voice grew emotional. He worked 18-hour days for 6 months. He mortgaged his house. His wife supported him through illness and doubt. My throat tightened at the mention of Caroline. And then one night he solved it. His designs didn't just save the company. They created an entirely new manufacturing process. Within 5 years, his innovations were industry standard. Within 10, they generated billions in revenue across multiple companies. Harrison gestured to the room. "Half the devices in this room use technology derived from his original work. Your phones, your computers, your medical devices. His fingerprints are everywhere, yet he never sought credit, never demanded recognition." The crowd stood silent, processing. These 12 watches were created as symbols, priceless not in money, but in history. They represent the moment everything changed. Harrison looked at me, and he's been wearing his all along, quietly, while the world forgot. The applause thundered through the ballroom. It went on and on. Tyler stood beside me, completely still, his face ashen. As the applause finally died down, Tyler suddenly pushed forward. "It's just a watch." His voice cracked with desperation. "I mean, yes, it's special, but..." Harrison's warm expression cooled instantly. "Just a watch." He turned to face Tyler fully. "Young man, do you have any idea what you're saying?" "I'm his son," Tyler said, as if that justified everything. "I know my father." "He's..." "Your father," Harrison interrupted, his voice sharp, "is a genius who changed the world. This isn't just anything. This is a legacy. a symbol of human innovation and persistence. Tyler's face reddened. I didn't mean. And judging by your tone, you've never appreciated what you had right in front of you. Amanda grabbed Tyler's arm, trying to pull him back, but he shook her off. Other guests were watching now, phones out, recording. A woman I didn't recognize stepped forward, a journalist, based on her press badge. Excuse me, but I'd love to know more about the family dynamic here. Did you always know about your father's achievements? Tyler opened his mouth, but Harrison spoke first. That's an excellent question. Tell me, son, did you support your father? Celebrate his accomplishments? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Tyler stammered. Well, he never really talked about. Because you never asked? Harrison's words cut through the excuses. Reporters started scribbling. Cameras flashed. Tyler's carefully constructed image was crumbling in real time. Harrison turned away from Tyler, addressing the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite our guest of honor to the stage. A spotlight illuminated a small platform at the front of the ballroom. My heart raced as Harrison gently guided me forward. The crowd parted. I climbed the 3 steps to the stage, my old watch catching the light. Harrison took the microphone. For too long, we've let heroes fade into obscurity. This man asked for nothing, expected nothing. But tonight we remember, we honor, we celebrate the mind that shaped our future. He launched into a detailed account of my work. Projects I'd forgotten, innovations I'd considered routine, moments of brilliance I'd taken for granted. The crowd listened, rapt. When he finished, the entire ballroom rose in a standing ovation. The sound was overwhelming. Applause, cheers, whistles. I stood there, 70 years old in an outdated suit, wearing a scratched watch, and felt seen for the first time in decades. From the crowd, I spotted Tyler and Amanda. She was whispering urgently to him, her face panicked. You told me he was useless. I could read on her lips. You said he was just a nobody. Tyler's expression was a mix of horror, shame, and desperate calculation. He was realizing too late what he'd thrown away. Melissa pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her face. She reached the stage and I helped her up. She hugged me tight. I'm so proud of you, Dad, she whispered. After I left the stage, Tyler tried to insert himself into conversations. Yes, that's my father, he said to a group of executives. I've always supported his work, always believed in him, but people weren't buying it. Several attendees had witnessed the watch mockery at the neighborhood barbecue. Mr. Peterson was there and he'd shared the story. A young engineer confronted Tyler directly. Weren't you the one who called his watch cheap junk? Someone posted a video from your neighborhood party. Tyler's face went white. I was joking. Obviously. Didn't sound like a joke, the engineer said coldly, walking away. Amanda tried damage control, but the whispers had already spread. Mocked his own father. Called him worthless. Had no idea what he had. Harrison appeared beside Tyler, his expression stern. I heard some concerning things about how you've treated your father. That's not. People are exaggerating. Are they? Harrison looked at me. Tell me honestly, did your family support you? Value you? Or did they make you feel small? The ballroom went quiet again. All eyes on me. Tyler shook his head frantically. Dad, don't. Please. But I'd been silent for too long. I'd let them diminish me for too long. They mocked me, I said clearly. Called me worthless. Called this watch garbage. They made me feel like I'd wasted my life on nothing that mattered. The crowd's gasp was audible. But this watch, I continued, touching it gently, reminded me that my time would come. That truth doesn't need defense. It just needs patience. Thunderous applause erupted again, drowning out whatever Tyler tried to say. After the speech, Harrison pulled me aside to a quiet corner, away from the crowds. I have a proposition, he said. We're establishing an advisory board, senior engineers who guide our innovation strategy. The compensation is excellent, but more importantly, it's a chance to mentor the next generation. My heart swelled at the thought. purpose, recognition, contribution. I'd be honored to consider it. Consider it? Harrison laughed. I'm practically begging. Your insights alone are worth millions. But I understand if you want time to think. Tyler appeared, having followed us. His jaw literally dropped as he overheard. Advisory board? Dad. That's incredible. I always knew you had more to offer. We should celebrate this as a family. His desperation was painful to witness. Harrison looked at him with barely concealed disgust. Funny how family suddenly matters when there's money and prestige involved. Tyler flinched. I looked at my son, really looked at him. I saw a man who'd learned all the wrong lessons, who measured worth in dollars and status, who'd inherited nothing of what truly mattered from me. Harrison, I said carefully, I appreciate the offer, truly, but I need to decline. Harrison's face fell. What? Why? Because I came here for closure, not power, I explained. I needed to know that my work mattered, that my life had meaning. You've given me that gift tonight. The standing ovation, the recognition, the respect. That's enough. Tyler looked confused, unable to comprehend turning down such an opportunity. But Harrison understood. He nodded slowly. You're a rare man. Harrison wasn't finished with the evening's surprises. He returned to the stage, announcing the creation of the Harrison Legacy Scholarship, funded entirely by Bennett Technologies, designed to support young engineers from modest backgrounds. And I'd like to name the first recipient, Harrison said, his eyes sweeping the crowd until they landed on Melissa. Your daughter submitted an application to our engineering program last month. Her essay about being inspired by an unnamed hero, her father, was extraordinary. Melissa gasped beside me. I hadn't known she'd applied. Melissa, would you join us on stage? She looked at me, tears in her eyes. I nodded, squeezing her hand. She walked to the stage with her head high. Harrison presented her with a certificate and scholarship award. Your father changed our industry. Now you have the chance to change it too. The applause was deafening. Melissa took the microphone with shaking hands. My father taught me that real value isn't in what you wear or own. It's in what you create and contribute. He's my hero. He always has been. Even when others couldn't see it, I did. She looked directly at Tyler. He's the best man I know, and I'm going to make him proud. The crowd roared approval. Tyler stood in the back, watching his sister receive the recognition he'd always craved. His face was a mask of shame and jealousy. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out. Amanda hesitated, looking between her husband's retreating form and the celebration. Finally, she followed him. Diane remained, but no one acknowledged her. We arrived home near midnight. Tyler's car was in the driveway, engine running. Amanda sat in the passenger seat, crying. I walked past them into the house. Tyler followed, leaving Amanda outside. Dad, he started. Stop, I said firmly. I was tired. Bone tired in a way that had nothing to do with the late hour. I sat in my armchair, the same one I'd sat in for 30 years. Tyler stood before me like a child awaiting judgment. You mocked me for what you didn't understand, I said quietly. You measured my worth by your shallow standards. You made me feel worthless in my own home. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. I looked at him steadily. You saw an old man with an old watch, and you couldn't imagine anything beyond surface appearances. That's not ignorance, Tyler. That's arrogance. He opened his mouth, closed it. This house, I continued, has been your inheritance in your mind, a place you'd eventually own, sell, profit from. But it's my house, built with money I earned through work you dismissed as irrelevant. Dad, please, this house is no longer yours to sneer in. I stood, walked to the closet, and pulled out luggage I'd packed earlier that day. I'd known, somehow, that this moment was coming. Your things are here. Amanda's too. Tyler stared at the bags, his face crumbling. You're kicking me out? I'm setting a boundary. Something I should have done years ago. Tyler's composure finally broke. Where am I supposed to go? You're 35 years old with a successful business. I'm sure you'll figure it out. But I'm your son. Yes, I said softly. You are. And I love you. But love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean letting you treat me like garbage while I wait for you to realize my worth. Patricia appeared from the bedroom, her face conflicted. Maybe we're being too harsh. No, I said firmly, surprising her. We've been too soft for too long. We've enabled this behavior by never setting consequences. Tyler grabbed the bags, his hands shaking. This is because I didn't know about your past? Because I didn't worship your watch? This is because you mocked me for what you didn't understand, I replied. The watch never made me valuable, Tyler. My work did. My integrity did. My persistence through hardship did. Those are things that don't shine like gold or get flashed at parties. But they're what actually matter. I moved closer to him. That's what you never learned. Value isn't about image or status or expensive watches. It's about contribution, character, the difference you make when no one's watching. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. I can change. I can. Maybe you can, I said. But you can't do it here with me enabling your disrespect. You need to go figure out who you are when you're not standing on someone else to feel tall. He stood there, broken and lost. Goodbye, Tyler. Tyler carried the bags to his car. Through the window, I watched Amanda's confused face as he loaded them into the trunk. Diane appeared at my elbow. You're making a mistake. He's your only son. Which is why I'm doing this, I replied. Because I love him enough to let him fail. To let him learn consequences. Something you never taught your daughter. She sputtered, offended, but I walked away before she could respond. Melissa came downstairs, having witnessed the whole exchange. She hugged me tight. You did the right thing, she whispered. Did I? The doubt crept in now that the moment had passed. Yes, Tyler needed this. He needed to understand that actions have consequences. That you can't treat people badly and expect them to just accept it forever. Patricia joined us, wiping her eyes. I should have stood up for you more. All these years I just let them diminish you. I'm sorry. I took her hand. We both enabled it. But we can choose differently now. Through the window, Tyler's car finally pulled away, taillights disappearing into the darkness. The house felt quieter, emptier, but also lighter somehow. I looked down at my watch. It was nearly 1 a.m, but the old timepiece kept ticking steadily, unchanged by the drama. The watch never made me valuable, I repeated to myself. My work did. My integrity did. That's what you never learned, son. Melissa squeezed my shoulder. He'll understand someday. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but eventually. And when he does, he'll come back different. Maybe, I said. Or maybe not. But either way, I finally chose myself. I finally stood up for my own worth. And that, I realized, was the real victory tonight. 6 months passed. Tyler called twice. Awkward, stilted conversations where he apologized without really understanding what for. I kept the conversations brief but not unkind. Now it was Sunday afternoon, my favorite time of week. I sat in my armchair, the autumn sun streaming through the window, warming my face. In my lap sat my old watch. I polished it slowly with a soft cloth, the familiar ritual bringing peace. The front door opened. Melissa walked in, carrying textbooks and a laptop bag. She'd moved back home to be closer to her engineering program. Having her here filled the house with life again. She dropped her bag and sat on the ottoman beside my chair, watching me work on the watch. It's beautiful, she said softly. I looked up, surprised. You think so? I do now. Before I just saw an old watch. Now I see everything it represents. The work you did. The person you were. The sacrifices you made. She touched the worn leather strap gently. I see you, Dad. Really see you. My throat tightened with emotion. Tell me the story again, she asked. About the night you solved the impossible problem. So I did. I told her about the late nights in the laboratory, about Caroline bringing me coffee at midnight, about the moment the solution finally clicked into place. About Dr. Harrison's face when I showed him the working prototype. Melissa listened, absorbed, asking intelligent questions that showed she truly understood the technical aspects. I want to do that someday, she said. Create something that matters. Something that lasts. You will, I assured her. You already are. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the watch ticking steadily between us. Do you regret it? Melissa finally asked. Kicking Tyler out? I considered the question carefully. No. I regret that it was necessary. But I don't regret doing it. Some lessons can only be learned through loss. Do you think he's learned it? I don't know. But that's not my responsibility anymore. I can't force understanding. I can only maintain my boundaries and hope that someday he chooses growth over ego. Melissa nodded. That's wise. I smiled at her. When did you get so smart? I learned from the best. The watch gleamed in the afternoon light, its scratched face telling stories of decades lived with purpose. The second hand continued its eternal journey, marking time that was mine again. It's not just a watch, Melissa said, echoing my thoughts. No, I agreed. It's my time, my story, my worth. I'd spent years letting others define me, diminish me, dismiss me. But that was over now. The watch had always known what I'd forgotten, that real value doesn't fade with age or go out of style. It doesn't need validation or approval. It simply is. And I finally took it back, I said, completing the thought aloud. Melissa smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. Yes, you did. Outside, the autumn leaves drifted past the window. Inside, time moved forward, steady and sure. The watch kept ticking, and I kept living, finally free.